Hi, I'm Grace and I'm 29 years old. My parents gave away $12 million. My inheritance. Every last penny of it. And they gave it to my brother's children. Children who already have everything. Children who never once said thank you to me for the 11 years I spent taking care of this family. I found out on a Tuesday. Through an email. Not even a phone call. By the end of this story, my brother will lose everything he built on my back. And my parents will beg me to forgive them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. I grew up believing family meant loyalty. My parents built a successful furniture business from nothing. 40 years of 16-hour days. 40 years of sacrifice. I was the one who stayed close. I was the one who drove them to hospital appointments. I was the one who sat with my mother through her chemotherapy, holding a bucket at 3 in the morning while she was sick from the treatment. My brother David lived 2 hours away. He visited on holidays. He posted photos online with captions about family values. But he was never actually there. David has 3 children. Ollie, Poppy, and little Freddie. Sweet kids. Not their fault, any of this. I want to make that clear right now. This isn't about punishing children. This is about what adults did behind closed doors. For years, my parents told me the business, the house, the savings, all of it would be split evenly between David and me. They said it to my face. More than once. I never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted them completely. Then 5 years ago, my father had a stroke. That's when everything started to shift, though I didn't see it yet. David suddenly became very interested in helping out. He moved closer. He started attending every doctor's appointment. He started speaking to my parents' solicitor. Alone. Without me. I thought he was finally stepping up. I was relieved, honestly. I thought maybe we'd share the load together for once. Here's where it gets interesting, so stay with me. My mother started acting strange around that time. Distant. Guarded. When I'd bring up the future of the business, she'd change the subject. When I asked about the will, my father would just say, "Don't worry about that, love. Everything's sorted." I kept showing up. I kept driving 40 minutes each way, twice a week, to help my mother with groceries and paperwork. I kept covering shifts at the family shop when staff called in sick. I never once submitted an invoice. I never once asked to be paid. Because family doesn't do that to family. Or so I thought. Meanwhile, David was quietly building something else entirely. He started telling my parents that his children needed security. That property prices were rising and his kids deserved a head start that he never got. He painted himself as the responsible one, the stable one, the one thinking about legacy. He painted me as the single woman with no children, the one who didn't need as much, the one who could make her own way. I didn't know any of this was happening. Not yet. 2 months before my father's second stroke, the solicitor came to the house. David was there. I wasn't invited. Nobody told me there was a meeting at all. That's the moment the will was changed. I found out about it in the worst possible way. My father passed away 8 weeks later. Peacefully, in his sleep, with my mother beside him. I want you to know I loved him completely, despite everything that came after. Grief doesn't erase love. It just complicates it. The funeral was quiet. Dignified. David gave a beautiful eulogy about family unity. I remember sitting there thinking how proud my father would have been. I had no idea that within days, everything I believed about my family would collapse. 3 weeks after the funeral, an email arrived from the family solicitor. Subject line: Estate distribution, final documentation. I opened it expecting confirmation of what my parents always promised. An even split. Instead, I found a document that made my hands go cold. The business. Transferred entirely into a trust for Ollie, Poppy, and Freddie. The house. Also placed into that same trust. The savings, the investment portfolio, everything my parents built across 4 decades. All of it, redirected into accounts controlled by David as trustee, for his children's benefit. My name appeared exactly once in the entire document. In a single line that read, "No further provision has been made for Grace. No further provision has been made for Grace." 11 years of driving my mother to appointments. 11 years of holding buckets at 3 in the morning. 11 years of unpaid shifts. Summarized in 9 words. I didn't cry. I want to be honest with you. I felt something colder than crying. I felt very, very still. I called my mother immediately. She didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. I drove to the house that same evening. When she opened the door, she wouldn't look at me properly. I asked her directly, "Did you know about this?" She said very quietly, "David explained it would be better this way, for the grandchildren's future." I asked her the only question that mattered. "And what about my future?" She didn't have an answer for that. She just looked at the floor. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I want to pause here because what happens next is the part nobody expected. Not my mother. Not my brother. Not even me, if I'm being completely honest. I went home that night and I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold in front of me, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to post an emotional message online tagging my brother. I was going to find out exactly how this happened. Every detail. Every signature. Every date. Because something about that solicitor's meeting didn't sit right with me. My father had a stroke. My mother was exhausted and grieving in advance, watching her husband decline. And in the middle of all that vulnerability, my brother had somehow arranged private meetings, without me, that ended with everything going to his children. That's not generosity. That's opportunity. The next morning, I called a solicitor of my own. A woman named Patricia, recommended by a friend from work who'd gone through something similar with her own family. I told her everything. The stroke. The private meetings. The sudden change in my parents' behavior. The 9 words that erased 11. She asked me one question that changed the entire direction of this story. Do you have access to your father's medical records from the months before the will was changed? Here's where the real plan began, so don't go anywhere. My father's stroke had left him with periods of confusion. Cognitive fog, the doctors called it. It came and went. Some days he was completely himself. Other days he struggled to remember what year it was. Patricia explained something called undue influence. In simple terms, if someone uses a position of trust to manipulate a vulnerable person into changing a legal document for their own benefit, that document can be challenged in court. Overturned even. But we needed proof. Not feelings. Not suspicion. Proof. I started quietly gathering everything. My father's medical records, which I was entitled to as next of kin alongside my mother. Appointment logs from the solicitor's office. Bank statements showing when large transfers began. And here's what I found that made my blood run cold. 3 months before the will was changed, David had opened a joint account with my father. Not my mother. Just my father during one of his confused periods. Over the following weeks, money started moving from my parents' main savings into that joint account. Then from that account, into David's personal business ventures. He wasn't just securing his children's future, he was already spending it. I kept digging. I found messages, forwarded to me accidentally by my cousin who was still friendly with David's ex-wife, of all people, from before their marriage fell apart years earlier. In one message David had written, and I'm going to keep this brief because it still makes me feel sick, that once the old man signs everything over, their financial problems would be solved for good. This wasn't a family looking out for grandchildren. This was a calculated plan. I brought everything to Patricia. She looked through it for almost 2 hours without saying a word. Then she looked up at me and said, "Grace, this isn't just a case for contesting a will. This is potential financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. This could be criminal." I sat with that for a long moment. Because up until then, part of me still wanted this to be a misunderstanding. Part of me still wanted my brother to be the person I grew up believing he was. That part of me needed to let go. We're about to get into exactly how this played out, and I promise you, it gets better from here. I made a choice at that point. I wasn't going to confront David directly first. He was clever. He'd talk his way around it, the way he always had since we were children. Instead, Patricia and I built our case quietly, methodically for 6 weeks. We requested full financial disclosure through legal channels. We obtained the solicitor's file notes from the meetings I wasn't invited to. And in those notes, we found something David never expected anyone to see. The solicitor had written, in his own private notes, a concern. He'd noted that my father seemed somewhat unclear on the details of the transfer during their meeting, but that David had reassured him repeatedly and encouraged him to sign quickly, citing time pressure due to his health. Time pressure. My dying father was rushed into signing away everything and told to hurry up. I filed a formal legal challenge to contest the will on grounds of undue influence and lack of testamentary capacity. At the same time, Patricia recommended I report the joint account transfers to the relevant authorities for investigation into financial abuse of a vulnerable adult. David found out 2 days later. He called me screaming. Actually screaming, down the phone, calling me jealous, bitter, obsessed with money. I stayed completely calm. I said one sentence to him. I have the messages, David. All of them. The line went silent. That silence lasted exactly 4 seconds before he hung up on me. Now here's where things really start to unravel. And it happens faster than you'd think. Within a week, the authorities opened a formal inquiry into the joint account transfers. Investigators requested full records from David's business accounts. What they found wasn't just questionable. It was damning. Nearly $200,000 moved directly from my father's account into David's failing property development business over the previous 8 months. A business that was, we later learned, on the brink of bankruptcy before that money arrived. He hadn't been securing his children's future at all. He'd been saving himself. My mother was informed of all of this by the investigating solicitor, not by me. I made sure of that. I wanted her to hear it from someone with no emotional stake in hurting either of us. She called me that evening. Her voice was completely different from the one I'd heard at the door weeks earlier. "Grace," she said, "I think I made a terrible mistake." I didn't say anything for a moment. I let her sit in that discomfort, the same way I'd sat in mine. Then I asked her calmly, "Did you know he was moving money before Dad's stroke fully cleared his mind?" She said no. She said David had told her it was just paperwork to protect the family from inheritance tax. She said she trusted him because he was handling everything and she was too exhausted, too grief-stricken, to question the details. I believed her. Genuinely. My mother wasn't the architect of this. She was manipulated too, in her own way, by her own grief and her own son. But that didn't undo what had been signed. Stay with me, because the consequences are about to land hard. The court process took another 4 months. During that time, David's business partners, upon learning about the ongoing fraud investigation, pulled out of 2 major contracts. His development company collapsed entirely. His wife, who had already been struggling with him for years over his spending habits, filed for divorce during the same month the investigation became public within our small family circle. The trust he'd built to control the inheritance was frozen by court order pending the outcome of the will contest. And then the moment I'd been building toward for 4 months finally arrived. The court ruled that the changes made to my parents' will showed clear evidence of undue influence. My father's diminished capacity during that period, combined with the financial transfers and the solicitor's own recorded concerns, was enough. The revised will was set aside entirely. The court reverted to my parents' original will, the one written 8 years earlier, the one that split everything evenly between David and me, with a separate, modest, appropriate trust set up for the grandchildren's education, funded fairly, without stripping either of their parents of everything they'd built. David was also formally referred for prosecution regarding the misuse of funds from a vulnerable adult's account. That process is still ongoing as I record this. He lost the business. He lost his marriage. He lost, in many ways, the version of himself he'd spent years pretending to be. But here's the part that surprised even me. He never apologized. Not once. Even after all of it. Even after losing everything. He sent me one final message. It said, "I hope you're happy." I was actually. Just not for the reason he thought. I wasn't happy that his life fell apart. I was happy that the truth finally existed somewhere outside my own head. I was happy that 11 years of showing up finally meant something, legally and morally, even if it took a courtroom to prove it. My mother and I have slowly, carefully, started rebuilding our relationship. It's not the same as before. I don't think it ever will be. But she's honest with me now, in a way she never was during those years David was managing everything behind closed doors. She's admitted things to me. Hard things. About how easy it was to let someone else make decisions when grief made her too tired to ask questions. I've forgiven her. Slowly. Not because she's owed it, but because I refused to carry bitterness the way David carried his ambition. It cost him everything. I wasn't going to let it cost me my peace as well. Ollie, Poppy, and little Freddie still have a future secured. A fair one. A trust that will genuinely help with their education, without erasing anyone else's life to fund it. That was always the right way to do it. My parents just needed the truth to find its way back to them first. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Quiet, calm documentation will always beat loud accusations. I never raised my voice once through this entire process. I didn't need to. The truth, properly gathered and properly presented, speaks far louder than anger ever could. If someone in your life is quietly rewriting your family's story while you're not in the room, pay attention. Ask questions. Get the paperwork. Protect yourself before you need to. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe, because there are more stories like mine coming every single week. And leave a comment below telling me what you would have done in my position. I read every single one. Thank you for listening. And remember, family isn't about blood alone. It's about who actually shows up and who tells the truth when it matters most.